Okay, well, thanks everyone for joining. We're delighted to be here today to run this session on the Power Platform webinar focusing on Virgin Wines and their journey using the Power Apps. This is a perfect session to learn a bit more about Power Apps, how they can optimize business operations, how they could potentially optimize your business operations, and we'll have this real world example from Virgin Wines. So just a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to run this session for around 40 minutes. All participation is muted just to ensure we've got a smooth experience for everybody on the call and there's no background noise, etc. But we do have at the top right hand side of the screen, you should see the Q&A panel, the little speech bubble with a question mark. So please do ask questions throughout the session. We'll have a Q&A session at the end specifically, but please do feel free to ask questions as we go through. And if we can interject the speaker at the time, we'll try and ask those at the right time. This event is being recorded, so you will be able to have access to that after the event and share it with any of your colleagues, etc. So just to let you know that is being recorded. My name's James Sharp. I'm the MD here at Climber UK. I'm not meant to be here. We're meant to have Alex Booth, as you may have seen advertised, as the host for this event. But unfortunately, Alex had a very minor motorcycle accident yesterday or at the weekend, and he's on the call listening, but unfortunately, he's not able to join us today. So yeah, you have me instead. But I'm delighted to be joined by Gareth Wilson, our senior Microsoft consultant from Climber. Gareth has around 20 years experience of working in IT and business transformation projects focused on Microsoft technologies and, as you're not surprised, the Power Platform and the Microsoft Fabric. And then I'm really pleased to welcome and thank Danny Cooper for him joining us today, Chief Information and Digital Officer from Virgin Wines. Danny has over 30 years experience in technology and digital transformation. He's led innovations across industries, including e-commerce, finance, consumer retail. And now at Virgin Wines, he's focused on transforming how customers discover and enjoy wine using technology to create that seamless, personalized experience. So Danny, thanks so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
So over the next 40 minutes or so, Danny's going to shape the challenges that Virgin had, and we're looking to Power Platform as the solution to overcome. He'll focus on the benefits of the new solution provides, and then we'll pass on to Gareth to run a live demo of the solution that was implemented. And then, as I mentioned, at the end, we'll have a Q&A. But just before I pass over to Danny, I just wanted to give a quick overview of who Climber are for those on the line that don't know. So Climber are a data and analytics consultancy. We were founded in 2007, and we got offices across 5 countries, with our head office being in Sweden. We provide services across the full Microsoft Power Platform and Fabric stack, and also with Click. So those of you familiar with Click as well, other products such as Snowflake, Time Extender, etc. So we do pretty much everything end to end from a data and analytics and obviously these days AI perspective. The services we provide are advisory, so a lot of the work that we would have done with the likes of Virgin would be trying to provide advice in terms of options available to overcome their challenges, and then of course the solution development, so that may be data and analytics solutions, or in this case it's a Power App to streamline business process, user training across all the services that we provide. And then we also have some hosting infrastructure services solutions as well, based out of our offices in Sweden, and then a dedicated support team. So that gives you a little bit of a very whistle-stop tour of who Climber are and the kind of services we provide and the technologies we support. So Danny, if it's okay, I'd like to hand over to you and hear more about Virgin Wines and the challenges that you had, and then how you've managed to overcome those with the with the use of Power Apps.
Of course, thank you very much, and again, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining this session. So yeah, I'm just going to pick up the screen here because I have to share my window now. So hopefully everybody can see my screen now. So yes, so first of all, I guess a bit of background on Virgin Wines, just for those of you that don't know who we are. So Virgin Wines launched 25 years ago, so we're at our quarter century now. This year is our 25th year. And in that time, we've sold well over 100 million bottles of wine. I think we're probably bordering on the 200 million bottles now. But we work really closely hand in hand with winemakers all over the world. 60% of the wine that we stock is mixed by us, working with these winemakers, using data from our customers to really create and source wines that you won't find anywhere else. We are based in Norwich, but we have two distribution centres, one in Bolton and one in Preston. And obviously for us, having such an important reputation and credibility to maintain in a very competitive industry, product quality, delivery and fulfillment optimization is really key to our success. So in terms of what that means for us in terms of the challenge, obviously, as I'm sure you can imagine, we ship an awful lot of bottles of wine every year. We have 250,000 plus customers across the UK that are regular subscribers, plus customers that come in and buy ad hoc from us. So, you know, there are certain times of the year, it's a very peaky business, certain times of the year where there's a very, very dense fulfillment demand. So Christmas being one of them, and obviously other seasons throughout the year can get incredibly busy for us. We are shipping around 10 million bottles every year. And to give you an idea of scale, 650,000 orders going out to our customers. This introduces very unique challenges with forecasting and planning capabilities. And we 2 years ago moved to a new warehouse management platform called Corba, which was a step up in terms of warehouse planning, stock management, and stock movement. And really, the ambition of that was to, you know, be able to help us to get product out much more quickly, and make sure that our supply chain and fulfillment was really optimized and organized. And what we found is that with Corba, we have some very, very rich data. So we know, you know, how many picks are being done on any given day, you know, what the product position is, you know, where product and stock is across the two warehouses. So, you know, as I'm sure you can imagine, a very rich set of data on the Corba platform. But what we had an issue with was time and attendance visibility and resource forecasting. So those of you that work within warehouse environments will know that, you know, resource forecasting, especially for busy peak periods, is equally as important as knowing where your stock and product is. Because if you don't have enough people, you can't get the stock out the door. And if you've got too many people, the costs are going to increase. And it's trying to find that sweet spot between those two things to make sure you've got enough people to manage the stock and the forecasting that goes along with that. I think another challenge that we face, and I'm sure many in this industry do, is competition. You know, knowing what resources you're going to need and then being able to secure those resources is really crucial. So you need to be able to forecast well in advance to make sure that you've secured the resources before the Tesco's, the Amazons, the Asdas, and all of these guys have picked them all up. So being able to forecast much further ahead is really crucial. But we've really struggled in this space to be able to manage that. What it also meant was that we had this lack of converged reporting. So whilst we had, you know, some really good dashboards on the Corba side of things, and we could see, you know, throughput on that side, what we couldn't see is, do we have, you know, 20 people that are really smashing it in terms of picking and packing, and 5 people, you know, hiding down the back of the corridor somewhere, not really pulling their weight. So being able to converge that data to get that full view, and to see, what the performance metrics and key KPIs are for teams in the warehouse was really challenging for us. And clearly this leads to us being unable to effectively forecast resource demands, especially for those complicated peak periods. So in terms of the problem definition, and the thing that we were trying to really solve was we were unable to combine the product data with resource allocation to achieve this sweet spot of optimization and accurate forecasting. So in terms of what the objective was, we wanted to obtain a system that could track time and attendance and also double up as an activity logging platform so that we could capture that data to improve our resource forecasting. So one of the key things was we wanted to make sure it was using facial records. One of the issues that we've seen in the past with our previous time and attendance platform, which was really just about our people here, was people could come in and log on for their friends, even though their friends weren't necessarily on site at that time. So one of the key things we wanted to make sure that we could do was capture a facial record of the person logging their data. And the kind of activities that we wanted to pick up and collect were things like picking and packing, any administration tasks they might be doing, hygiene, stock takes, lunch breaks, any other breaks they might take, and so on. And then on the other side of that, we had this management reporting piece, supervisor real-time dashboard capabilities that we're looking at as well. And then the hours worked for each of those individuals so that we could approve salaries more effectively. And in essence, although we had time and attendance systems, we actually had three. That was a benefit that we saw coming out of this, was that whilst we were looking at this as a forecasting and time tracking and management tool, actually we could move from three time and attendance systems, one for each of the warehouses plus one for agency, down to one. And then reporting, and really the important part was consolidation of that data with our WMS platform as well. In terms of options that we had available to us, there were really three things that we had available, which was one, we do nothing. But obviously within that, there is an ongoing cost of business inefficiencies or underestimating the resource allocation that we needed and the cost of lost sales. Option two was implementation of a turnkey solution from Corba. So, just buying something off the shelf from them. But the cost of doing that and the annual maintenance licensing agreements, was around £200,000. And for us, that was just not a realistic option, to be honest. And then option three was that we create a bespoke application specifically designed to suit our needs. And we'd allocate a budget of around £20,000 to do this. In terms of pros and cons of each of these things, obviously there are benefits and so on, and issues that you can face with this. Obviously, having a turnkey tier one solution can seem very attractive because you know what you're going to get. Is quite standard, and there are lots of use cases across multiple industries and multiple businesses that will seem very attractive at first glance. Also, the fact that support is guaranteed under contract, and that you're backed up with some heavyweight support should you need it, but the implementation costs are very high and the maintenance of that is significant. And you're also locked into that vendor and their capabilities, and if you want to customize it to meet your needs or add capabilities that they don't support, it can be very expensive to do and quite limiting. Plus, you're tied into them. If you decide that you want to move away from that platform or that provider, quite often you can't move it to somebody else. You can't pick it up and shift it. You're really starting again a lot of the time. Having a developed app can obviously save money, but you do need to ensure that the product is using a common framework. What you don't want is something that's been, put together Heath Robinson style by somebody that says, yes, we can do this, and you end up with the worst of both worlds. So you really want to make sure that you're doing it on something as a common open framework. And the other thing is avoid over-engineering the product. I joined Virgin Wines just a year ago now, and one of the things that we found with Corba was it is massively over-engineered. So rather than the teams modifying the business processes to support the product, they've modified the product to support the business processes, and now we're trying to undo that. So you know, just be mindful of whatever you're building in this space to not over engineer it or make it too complicated. But the real benefit for us was having a bespoke platform meant that it met our specific needs. So we could, you know, really build and deliver something that was very targeted to what we needed to achieve. And obviously, ensure you're working with experts that listen and can demonstrate the competence is really crucial to success. And really keeping a tight lid on that project scope is crucial as well. So in terms of pros and cons, that was the kind of headlines. There are others, but I'm sure we can discuss in the Q&A afterwards. In terms of the decision and what we decided to do, we were already engaged with Corba. We're actually talking to Corba specifically, to Climber, very specifically about reporting, because we are a click sense user at the moment. We are currently in the process of moving to Click Cloud. But because we were engaged with Corba, with Climber, we were having just a conversation, Alex and I, about potential options and some of the challenges that I'd had. And it was something that they'd suggested to us that we should look at doing a Power App to solve this. But the really good thing was we were actually having a conversation about whether we stay with Click or whether we look at Power BI and what the options are around those things. So it became much more than just about building the app. It actually became more about a strategic review of how we're managing our reporting and data across the bigger piece. There were, of course, substantial cost savings in this. As I mentioned before, £200,000 versus £20,000 is not to be sniffed at. It also meant that we could leverage internal skills. We have a lot of Microsoft expertise, as well as a lot of Click expertise internally. So it meant rather than retraining people on a new platform and understanding how that worked, we could leverage what we already had. We had absolute confidence in the technical competence that was being offered to us, again, because we have a relationship with Climber. We know the guys, we know what they're capable of doing. It ticked the box in terms of it being a common framework, which means that we have that portability if we want to bring it in-house. It was bespoke to our needs. A very quick delivery turnaround. I was actually really shocked and surprised at how quickly this was built and up running and working. So, you know, for those of you who have done these types of developments before, 4 weeks is an impressive turnaround for anything, to be honest. And it really was a no-nonsense solution. We got straight in, working very closely with the teams. Everybody had some input into that, and it was a very productive and engaging working group, and a very low cost of TCO as well. So the ongoing costs of this, what you would imagine for a Microsoft product. In terms of the outcome, we wanted something that was touchscreen, that was easy to use and sat within the warehouse. They ticked the box on that. We wanted to have very intuitive functionality. You know, we're talking about people on the warehouse floor that aren't really used to using complex technology solutions, so it needed to be really simple and really quite clear. So we really focused in on that. We wanted the team to be engaged with it. Quite often, technology solutions can be introduced with all the best intention in the world, but unless you've got the team on board with it, it's going to fail. And the one thing I can say is because of the fact that it is so easy to use, the team have been incredibly engaged with it, and we're seeing a lot of uptake of it within the warehouses. We also needed to have multi-point access, which means that we needed multiple stations around the place, but with one common back end where everybody was logging that data. Obviously, having 2 or more facilities, you want to make sure that it's scalable in that sense. And again, ticks the box on that. And it was bang on budget. I think actually it was a little bit under budget, and we ended up with some in reserve to do some additional enhancements, which we're looking at moving forwards on. And what we're also working on now is we have that opportunity for that extensive resource reporting to be able to tie this data in with the Corba data with ClickSense over the top of all of that. And we're going to move on to the demo now, but I just wanted to give you a snapshot of this is what the interface looks like, and it is very straightforward and easy for the teams to use. So I hope that's been useful. Obviously, any questions you have on any of that, I can touch base on at the end. But for now, I'm going to hand control back to Gareth. just stop sharing
Thanks,
this,
Danny.
Gareth.
That's great.
Over to you.
Just while you bring yours up, Gareth, one thing I forgot to do at the start. So, Danny, thanks so much for that. And the only question I had actually was going to be around your engagement, but you answered that towards the end there. So it sounds like the engagement from staff and the ease of using the product has, the end result has all been really straightforward for the team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And historically, engagement with the warehouse teams in particular, I would say they have a mix of enthusiasm and disinterest in equal measures. And what I mean by that is that they're enthusiastic, but if something is technologically too complicated, they can really disengage very quickly. And I think that
yeah,
the thing that really struck me with this was it was very simple for them to understand. And the way that Gareth and Alex and the team worked with that group, um, they were not asking complex questions of people that were just flying over people's heads. They were asking real world, how do you do this in the warehouse today, and how does that
yeah.
need to flow through in terms of a capability? And I think for that reason they were enormously engaged, which was great to see.
That's great. That's really good. That's really good. So just before we hand over to Gareth, one of the things I forgot to ask at the beginning was if people could just participate in a poll. So I think Catherine should be throwing up on the screen any second. I don't see it yet, but hopefully it will pop up. There we go. So what is the biggest challenges you're currently facing improving your business operations? So yeah, if we could just click through that, that would just give us a bit of an idea of yeah, how organizations are facing those challenges. Is it a cost saving exercise? Is it in making integrations across different products that you already have, and that kind of stuff? So thank you for completing that. If you could take a second over that, that'd be great. And then I'll hand over to Gareth and we can look at the poll at the end of the call. The floor is yours, Gareth.
All right, thank you. Let me just share my screen.
I should say that we are turning our cameras off so Gareth's demo works properly because it has facial recognition stuff using cameras. So you'll see none of us for a few minutes.
So I'm not sure why, but it says sharing is paused.
We are now seeing your screen.
You can see it.
We can see it. Yeah, we can see the Virgin screen and we see the loading in the login screen at the moment.
Okay, well, yeah. So yeah, so I'll just briefly go through the app itself. I think Danny touched on it really well in his presentation, that we tried to keep the app, the front end of the application, really simple, not only for the end users to be able to use, but to also keep the speed in the factory. Within the warehouse, there's a number of different tablets now set up for people to be able to log in and be able to clock in and choose their tasks. But what we wanted to avoid is queues at those. So people taking lots of time to log in and then being able to choose their task. We didn't want to have lots of queues at clock in and clock out time and things like that. So we worked with the warehouse team to make this as simple as possibly could for people to be able to interact with the application. So this is the first screen that users will get to on the tablet, and everybody's got assigned a unique 5-digit PIN, so they can just enter the PIN on the tablet and click login. Let me just do that again. So when I log in, it'll take a photo of the user as they're logging in. That's not a very flattering photo that it's taken of me there, but it'll take a photo from the tablet camera of the user that's logging in, and that'll be logged into SharePoint. It'll also bring up on the tablet a photo that was taken when I was first set up as a user. So we can see straight away on the tablet is this the same user? We can ensure that somebody's not using each other's PIN. So we got that bit of facial recognition thing in there. I can switch sites, so I can switch between the Bolton and Preston site. But my default one when I was set up is Bolton. Click clock in, and then that's me clocked in. So I can either click no on this screen, which is asking me if I want to start a task, and that'll just take me back to the login screen, or I can click yes. If I click yes, that'll take me to the next screen. It'll ask me which department that I'm going to work in. So at the moment, there's the three departments: warehouse ops, FLT, admin. Click on warehouse ops, and now these are the tasks associated with the warehouse ops department. I can quickly just click on training, click start task, and from there, that's it. So I've now clocked in very quickly, started the task of training, and then I'm away. And this is now back to the log on screen, available for the next person to be able to log in. If I log in again, obviously the app's got an awareness that I'm clocked in, so I don't get the clock in screen anymore. It's asked me to select a department, or I've got the option to clock out. So I can select another department, pick another task, and click start task. So all of that, each time that happens, it's getting logged in the background, and it's going into the task duration, and the task start and end time is being logged into Dataverse for each user every time that they come into this application. If I go back in and click clock out, and it's that easy to clock out, and I get a notification saying the clock out was successful. So that'll end the tasks that I've been working on for the day, but also end my clocking, start and end time. If I go back in there's two tiers of users, so that's a standard warehouse user. If I go back in as a admin user, you'll see I get this extra option, which is the control panel. And from there, I can perform a number of tasks. So I can add a new employee in here. I can add a new admin in here. I can approve overtime. So for people that are currently logged in, I can go through and approve their overtime, and that'll allow their clock in to run beyond their normal time. I can look up the employees. So I can find all the different employees, and I can deactivate employees from this screen. And I can edit a specific clock in. So if somebody's clocked out by accidentally, we can clear the clocking time, or if they clocked in and out at the wrong time, we can we can adjust the clock in and clock out times, but we keep a full audit of who's done that and why they've done that. We have a report which is currently clocked in, so this can be used for such as fire evacuation procedures. So here we can see everybody that's currently logged in, what office, what department they're on, what current task they're on. But you'll notice at the top we have this export button. So if I click export, what that'll do is that'll export the data that's in the current table to Excel. So then I could just print this out and take it outside as sort of a fire register. Also go into the clock-in report, so I can select a to and from date on here. So click and look at the clock-ins between different dates and times, depending on what the temporary permanent users, what department they're. So I can make selections and reduce the data that's being shown in this table. Again, you've got the export button. It'll export the data. Once you've applied the filters, it'll export the data into Excel for you. And then lastly, the task report. So yeah, same principle as the clock-in report. All the different tasks. I can select a specific user. I can see all the different tasks that they run from between the different start and end date. And again, you can export the data into Excel. So yeah, very simple and straightforward. I can just log out from there. And very easy for the staff to be able to use and very quick. That was the main thing. We needed to be able to very quickly go in, change a task, and then log back out again and be ready for the next user. From a reporting perspective, the data in here gets saved into Dataverse. So this is an example of the Dataverse table. So all of those, every time a user clicks on a new task, that is logged in these tables in Dataverse. And then from there, you've got a couple of options. So in Virgin's case, they have ClickSense already. So we've connected ClickSense Cloud, their ClickSense Cloud tenant to the Microsoft Dataverse environment, and then from there we can go and get the individual tables that these are, so the clock in, clock out, the pin logins, and the task durations. So we can bring all of that data out and save it into QVDs and use that for reporting later on. From a Microsoft perspective, it's slightly easier than that, but not much different. But obviously Microsoft Power BI has a dedicated Dataverse connector. So if you click on Dataverse, you'll see all your Dataverse environments. From there, you'll be able to find your tables, your Dataverse tables, and then click load. Let's take its time. But yeah, you'll be able to load the data from the Dataverse table using the dedicated connector in Power BI. So that's it from the demo perspective. As I say, nice, simple, straightforward. Thank you.
Thanks, Gareth. There was a question around reporting, which I think you pretty much touched on there, in terms of loading the data in, but it's just no different to any other data source then, I assume, in terms of lifting the data in and combining it with the data that Virgin have in their warehouse management system or anywhere else for that matter.
Yeah, we can. Reportings, we could. Microsoft provide any ways to connect into the data for a variety of different ways. If you notice on the demo, it's actually Clicks CRM connector that we for Dynamics 365 that we were using there, but we just repurposed it to point towards Dataverse. So yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's probably
Another one
worth
I
just
have
adding,
is
James, I was just going to add as well, just on the reporting side. So our ambitions and the reason that we're moving across to ClickSense and ClickCloud is really to take advantage of the AI capabilities, because again, within the warehouses, the production teams there are not so well versed on creating reports themselves. So having the ability to ask questions and let AI go off and pull that data together and provide the answer is going to be a really powerful tool for those guys, I think.
great. Yeah, good to hear, Danny. Good to hear. There's nowhere we can turn without AI joining us at the moment.
Not at all.
Yeah, indeed.
Another question we had, Gareth, was can you grant access to different roles based on their position role?
Different roles based on their position role. In this case, we only set up the two different roles, which was a standard user or an administrative user. But that does not mean we couldn't create as many different roles as you wanted, really, depending on what aspects of the application you wanted them to have access to. It's absolutely possible, but in this scenario, we only needed the two.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. I think that's pretty much it in terms of questions. The only one I do have here is about documentation. But I think that's more about whether we provide documentation, whether the client will provide documentation on the developed solution to hand over to Virgin.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that, that's standard for any piece of work we do. If we're handing it over to an organisation to run with, we would always provide the documentation at the suitable level for that, for the audience that needs to consume it as well. Very good. Any more questions? Okay, so I think the only additional thing for me to add is we're excited to be attending next month the Retail Technology Show. So we'll have a booth at the Excel Arena in London on the 2nd and 3rd of April, stand H88. So we'll be talking all things data and analytics and process improvement. So these sort of demos will be available to see. We've got uniform ordering, which again is a Power App that's been developed. Accent reporting, these are all things that might happen in retail outlets or warehouses and the like, but all within the sort of retail space. And then of course our data analytics reporting as well. So the dashboarding, the AI capabilities that we can do, predicting future trends and that kind of stuff. All that good stuff is going to be on show at the Retail Technology Show on the 2nd and 3rd. So if you can get there, we'd love to see you there. So, brilliant. Well, Danny, thank you again so much for sparing us your time and putting the effort in to join us today and share your challenges and the outcome. Really appreciated. And yeah, and thanks a lot. And thanks for everyone
My
for joining.
pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers now. Bye-bye.